Hello, welcome to a casual post E3 show. This isn't Game Dive, this isn't anything formal, there's no script, there's no show outline for this week. I'm not wearing a jacket, it's going to be a very casual, fast and loose report on E3 2017. My name is Drake Cummings. I was lucky enough to be able to go to E3 this year with an industry badge, as I make video games from time to time. And I have a report on everything I played and my impressions of the show floor and my impressions of the show itself, and maybe some ideas for how the show could be better next year. So yeah, let's get right into it. So my impression of the show itself, it was pretty cool. I've been wanting to go to E3 for a number of years now, and it was nice. There was a lot of really interesting booths, and I think this was a good year to go, despite the crowds. The crowds we're going to get to later, but just like as far as like the things I saw on the booths that were there, I think it was a good year. Probably some of my the most memorable booths, or the ones I found the most inspired, were Capcom had a really great booth. So Capcom had this big monster from Monster Hunter set up. You could go and take pictures, and they also had a giant throne where the Ultron Sigma was sitting. You can go and take pictures of him too. And then they had this really cool, it was this Street Fighter 5 timeline, or Street Fighter timeline, where they had a video of each of the Street Fighter games, footage from each of them, and then underneath it said like what each game added to the franchise as a whole. It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool lining all those up and just seeing the progression of those games, and how crazy simple Street Fighter 1 was. Warner Brothers had some pretty cool stuff. They had some Lego things, which I like, and then they had a giant dragon from, excuse my diction, I'm sure there's a more proper name than dragon, but a giant dragon-esque creature from Shadow of War set up, and you could actually sit on the dragon and get your picture taken as well. A lot of photo op opportunities. Bethesda had the diner from Wolfenstein 2. They just had the diner set up where you could go into the diner. Nintendo had New Donk City, like if you think like from Universal, if you think about like the Marvel world and Universal's Islands of Adventure, but instead of Marvel, it's just New Donk City everywhere. It's pretty cool. They transformed their entire booth into it. It's had like street signs and giant buildings, and even the carpet was styled to look like a road. And they had the hat ship that Mario's in. They had that, and they had a big Bowser tank set up too. I really admire the commitment with that one. Sega and Yakuza had a really cool booth. It was just like a street from that city from Yakuza set up with like the sign and everything. Actually, if you're familiar with the game, you can almost point to the exact street that they're trying to emulate. Sony's booth had some cool stuff. They had basically a lot of theater demos, and so they had big sections for their theater demos. One section was themed after Monster Hunter, one was themed after Uncharted, one after Days Gone, one of Spiderman, and one of Detroit. The two best were Days Gone and Spiderman. Days Gone has like this old like barn building with like tethered tapestry strung up that says Days Gone, and then Spiderman has a helicopter strung up with webs, and Spiderman is just like perched on top of it. And then there's like some buildings and stuff. It was really cool. There was a lot of like thought and stuff put into it, and like a lot of the booths, just E3 in general, it really did feel like going to a theme park. I am a big enthusiast of theme parks, I guess you would say. When I was living in Orlando, I loved Universal. I went like literally at least once a month, and so I love theme parks because I like the thought and care put into each attraction, each area. I like the theming of the theme parks almost more than the rides themselves, actually. I just appreciate immersion, kind of for the same reasons I appreciate game immersion, just like existing in that world that's separate from your own known reality. And that's kind of what the booths at E3 were like. It was like stepping into this other little world, because some of them were really well designed and stuff. Those were like probably the major like really cool like themed booths. There's a couple other like cool things. there was a ball pit that this was like a third-party controller company, I think, and they just wanted you to play with their third-party controller. And so they had like other people's games set up, but you played while you're in this ball pit. It was a really fun way to attract people. And because if you're walking around E3 and you're looking at all the different booths that you could play and like trying to figure out what you want to wait in line for, you're probably not going to wait in line to play with a new controller that you probably don't want, because you know, third-party controllers are typically the bad ones. You always want the first-party controllers. And so if you're trying to convince someone to give your third-party controller a try, I think allowing people to play in a ball pit is a really great way to do that. And it worked for them. They had a really long line of people just waiting to play in their ball pit. Other booths had small, cool things. 2K had a really weird media-only booth that was set up like a hotel. There was some other smaller ones I wasn't expecting. GameSpot and IGN actually had pretty big booths. There was this big esports area, I think powered by Twitch. I don't quite remember. I didn't pay too much attention. I watched a little bit of Quake Champions being played, and that was my extent there. And stuff. And yeah, just generally good vibes. It was pretty big. Everyone, I would say, had an interesting enough booth, just, you know, not interesting enough for me to sit on camera and like go into much detail about. I did appreciate everyone's booth, but some people definitely put more work into their theming than others. So that was the show floor. That was the vibe of the show floor. It was very crowded. It was super crowded. We'll get into that later. But for now, I'm just going to go through the games that I played, and if there's a booth that you're wondering about that I didn't mention, it's probably because it wasn't interesting enough to talk about. Final Fantasy 12 Remake. I played this almost by accident. I was walking around the Square Enix booth, which is a simple booth, and I was walking around just seeing what they had there, because my first day I pretty much spent just wandering around and just seeing what was there. Like, I really just wanted to explore the show floor and just see what there was to play. So I didn't play too much on the first day. But I was walking around the Square Enix booth, and someone just handed me the controller for Final Fantasy 12. I stopped for a second to look at the game, and then the guy he put it in my hands. And so I was like, sure, okay, I played it for a little bit. It's Final Fantasy 12. It looks really good. It's a really good remaster. They did a lot of work with making those textures really shine in HD. I didn't really get a chance to play around with the mechanics that are different, like the new job system and kind of some of the other things that they tweaked mechanically. I just kind of wandered around the forest area for a little, bit, and I fought some monsters. It's it's Final Fantasy 12 you love. The characters were like super over leveled for the demo, so everything pretty much died in one hit. I didn't really get to use some of the magics that I wanted to try out, but yeah, it's Final Fantasy 12 again. Not a bad thing. Then I spent a little bit of time in the indie booth. The Indiecade had some interesting stuff. I played Steinfield, and I apologize for the butchering of the name. It's by Gatta Games, G-A-T-T-A-I Games. This is a game, and I've seen a few games with this concept, but this one in particular was playable in PlayStation VR, which I find really interesting. It's all black. And then when you walk around or when you shout, you make sounds, and then if you make a sound, you can see an outline of your environment. So like black everywhere, and then white outlines when you make sounds. But the more sound that you make, the more it attracts the monster that's trying to kill you. I've seen this concept in at least 3 to 4 games. So there's definitely a lot of games that are doing this. I don't know how far any of those got. Mostly they're just like the stuff I see at Indiecades and or not Indiecades, but like indie events and indie game shows and stuff like that. But like I said, this one was in PlayStation VR, which I do think sets it apart, and I do think it makes it more appealing than some of the other ones I've seen. It's also, as it's coming to PlayStation VR, that means it's coming to consoles, which is again something I haven't seen with that concept a whole bunch. It's usually Steam games, potential Steam games that I've seen that at. So I would give Steinfield a look when it comes out. I think it comes out soon. I can't quite remember when they said it was coming out, but the developers seemed excited about it, and so I think it was soon. One other thing about Stifled is I didn't get motion sick, so I usually get pretty bad motion sickness from VR games, and I don't know if I just didn't play it long enough, or there like wasn't enough visual stimulation or like detail to make my brain confused about what was going on. But I didn't get motion sick, which was really cool. So, Stifled. So, the next game that I want to talk about is The Big Journey. With all the games I talk about, especially the indie games, I don't intend to be mean to any game. I want to be constructive. I want to report on what I played. There was some games that were in rough states. I played a game called The Big Journey. It's being made by a very small team, and it's still a very long ways off. They've been working on it for years, and I asked them like when the release date was, and they couldn't even tell me. They didn't even know. I really like the thought behind The Big Journey. It's made by a company called Civel Games, Civel Games, and it's about, they're from, I believe, somewhere in South America. I wish I had written down more notes about the details of the developer, but a very small team, and it's about their culture. It's about like the area they grew up. It's a very personal tale to them about some kind of cultural history around where they're from, and it's a very story-driven game. And the E3 was not the best setting to play it because it was loud and they didn't have headphones for me, and I couldn't really hear what was going on and stuff. But it's rough. The animations are rough. The models are rough. There's bugs. There's a lot to be cleaned up with The Big Journey, but it's one of those things you just really want to hope for, like it's coming from a really good place, and I think there is a lot of potential there if they have the time to polish it, which it seems like they do. It seems like they're in no rush to finish it, just take your time, guys. I played a game called Indie Assault. This is another one where it's just like it's in a rough shape. So this is a Smash Brothers-esque game that borrows some indie characters for their Smash Brothers type game, and this one's coming out a little sooner. This one's coming out this year. The game feels like it's in alpha or pre-alpha right now. I don't know exactly how far along it is. I know the release date isn't too far away, but I don't know how much, how long it's going to take to polish up that game. But again, just the animations are rough. The controls feel a little floaty. Some of the attacks are hard to read and stuff. And so it's one of those things that there are so many Smash Brothers-esque games out there. And I feel like it's hard to stand out, especially because Smash Brothers exists. And so if you're going to do a Smash Brothers-esque game, their pull is the fact that they're using other indie game characters. It still, I think, needs to be really, really polished to the level of quality that people were kind of expecting. And I don't think Indie Assault's there yet, but I'm really hoping they can polish it up. Because I love character fighters. I love the idea of taking characters that you love and just putting them into a fighting game. It needs some work, but it could get there. They showed me a very small slice of the game. It was only 2 characters. It was running on. It is going to be on PlayStation 4 though, so it's also interesting that is getting a console release right away as well. I also played a little bit of Frog Fractions too. I don't even want to give anything away about Frog Fractions. If you haven't played Frog Fractions, don't look it up. Just go. The first one's an in-browser game, and the second one you can find on Steam or a Humble Bundle. The developers actually said that they would prefer if I bought the game through Humble Bundle, so that's really cool of them. They seem like really great people. Again, just don't look anything up. Just go and play it or buy it. If you like silly, weird things, you will not be disappointed. If you hate silly, weird things, you're going to hate this. So keep that in mind too. Then I played Dissidia NT. The lines for a lot of things were pretty long. The line for Dissidia NT was only about an hour, so I waited because I love Final Fantasy. And I played the original Dissidia, and I had a lot of problems with it. It's been a few years. I was wondering if Dissidia NT had fixed any of the issues I had. Dissidia has just always felt like really clunky to me. And this is the first one on a console, so that's also really cool. That's kind of like the leap I was waiting for. I didn't get a lot of time with it. I only played one match, and I got destroyed. I didn't really get a handle on the controls, and I didn't really get a grip on like how combo systems work and like how the game is supposed to be played. And I think I was playing against people who really knew what they were doing. But it just initially it feels like they haven't really fixed the things I had issues with Dissidia. It still just feels kind of clunky. It still feels hard to pull off combos and things like that. So I'm not sure about it. I'm probably gonna still end up getting it because kind of like same thing with Indie Assault. Like it's an ensemble fighter with characters that you know. Like I like Final Fantasy characters, so like it's gonna be hard for me to say no to this game. It's gonna have so many in it by the time it comes out. Just the novelty of that alone is kind of like almost worth the price of admission for me. But yeah, the game is if you had issues with the other Dissidias as I did, I don't know that this one has addressed any of that. Sleep Titan Fight. It's another indie game. This one's coming out of the UK, and it's coming from a team of students, actually. They're going to school for game design in the UK, and this is like their final project is to create a game. And they actually have a partnership with PlayStation, so this is going to be released on PlayStation when they're done. There's a lot of potential here in Sleep Tight Fight. You control a character, the main that is going through a dream scenario, if I'm remembering correctly. But the biggest thing about this that was super engaging was it's the main gameplay hook is you have 3 different types of ammunition. You have, I believe, a red, a blue, and a yellow. And you switch those with the face button, so square, triangle, circle. And the corresponding color ammo type can only hurt the corresponding enemies, and there are certain crystals that you need to shoot as well to move on. And so it's a really fast-paced, frantic kind of shooter where you're kind of moving around because the enemies respawn infinitely, and you have to shoot the crystal in order to open a gate to move on. And so the enemies are one color, the crystal's different color, there's different enemies of different colors coming at you. So you constantly have to like move around and shoot and change your ammo types and stuff and keep moving, keep dodging. It was actually really fun. The game was it was pretty early and there were some bugs they had to work out, and you know there's a few refinements they could make. But I actually have pretty good confidence that when this comes out, all those things are going to be addressed. And so I was really down with Sleep Tight Fight. I have high hopes for that as well. And it's just cool to see, you know, students working on like a legitimately cool project for their capstone, something that's, you know, going to be released on PlayStation 4. Crazy. Other things that might be considered smaller things was there's Matterfall for the PlayStation 4. This is by Housemarque, the team that brought you Super Stardust, Dead Nation, and Resogun. And in the same vein as those other games, this is also a twin-stick shooter. But it's a side-scrolling twin-stick shooter. Left analog stick moves a character, right analog stick shoots. And then everything else is in the triggers. So I believe right bumper is R1 is jump, L1 is dash, and then the triggers change your ammo type. So I believe right trigger changes it to a matter beam, and then left trigger changes it to grenade. So you toss grenades instead of shooting. Why this is really cool is it's really kinetic. You're constantly moving around, and it feels frantic in a good way. So you have to use the matter beam doesn't hurt enemies, but you have to use it to form platforms. They're predetermined. There's outlines of platforms. You don't just make platforms wherever, but you have to form these platforms and then dash through them, and then you'll land on it. Like, it is solid matter, and your dash just allows you to like pass through it, and then you can land on it. So it's constantly mixing up platforming and shooting in a really interesting way. And it was the kind of thing where I wasn't very good at it, but I was still having a really good time. And I could just tell, like, the better I get at this game, the more fun I'm going to have. Just like as that difficulty curve goes up, so does your skill curve. And you're having more fun doing more cool things, combining your dashing and your matter beam and stuff together in really cool ways. It comes out soon. It comes out in August. It was my favorite game of what I played. I didn't get to play too much, but of what I played, it was my favorite game. Knack 2 I played as well. Knack 2 is Redemption. Knack 2 is way better than the first one. I played the first Knack and I enjoyed it for what it was, but there was a lot of things where I was just like, I really wish they just did this better. Like, there was a lot of potential, I thought, with Knack, and I always really hoped it was get a sequel because I really wanted them to have the chance to kind of address the shortcomings of that game, because I do think there is a really good game hidden somewhere in there, and I'm hoping this is it. From what I played in the demo, it seems like they're addressing a good amount of stuff. There's still some stuff I didn't really, get to see. I think the demo was relatively short. It's co-op now. I would say that playing the game co-op is better from a gameplay standpoint. So they put a lot of work into the combos of the game now, and just like improving the combat and making that fun and kind of feel like a character action game a little bit. And there's really cool team-up attacks you can do in co-op. However, I think it takes away from the platforming in co-op because only one of you needs to make the jump and the other one just like warps to it. So it didn't really seem like there was much of a penalty or, really a challenge to having it co-op. So I think the platforming is probably going to be more fun by yourself, but combat is maybe more fun with a partner. And that was just a small slice of the game, and they might have had some things tweaked so people aren't having too much of a hard time on the show floor. But my only concern is Knack is still just going to be too easy. But we'll see. I'm actually pretty excited for Knack 2, and it's only going to be $40, so think of the value. Then I want to talk about... I'll talk about the last two things that I actually got to play, and I'll talk about the theater demos that I watched. So... at the PlayStation booth, I got to play a VR game. I got to play The Inpatient. And this is a game that takes place in the Until Dawn universe. It takes place in the sanatorium where the one guy was exploring. I don't remember his name. I'm bad on details today. But it was the sanatorium, the rundown sanatorium that you explore with a character in Until Dawn. Takes place in that same sanatorium, just like in the 50s when it was like, running and stuff. And it's really cool. You play a mental patient, and the game starts off and you're doing, the doctor who looks very much like Hugo Strange is doing experiments on you. And, the more experiments he does, the more like questions he asks. He's really just trying to get to the root of your memories. Like, he wants you to remember stuff. You don't remember a lot of things, and so he's giving you injections and things, and like some other methods to get your memories out. But it's all just to get you to remember. I don't know why he wants you to remember these things. Maybe it's his job. Maybe there's something more sinister. But you can either be like apprehensive or like all about it. And so there's obviously in the demo, I didn't really get too much of a idea of like how drastically how you interact with him affects the rest of the game. But I did do the Until Dawn thing of like showing butterflies, saying that this choice has affected things. So how you react to the doctor definitely affects how the rest of the game is carried out. There's also a section where you're in a memory and you can look around because it's in VR, and basically an orderly finds you, but he doesn't have a face. And then when you get out, he asks you about the memory, and then you can be like, I saw a calendar, or there was a guy with no face. So I selected that because I didn't even see a calendar. And he was like, that's ridiculous, people have faces. It wasn't that candid, it was more serious. But he throws you back in, he forces you to relive the memory again. And this time I'm looking for the calendar. And I take notes, lots of details about the calendar, just mental notes. And I'm thinking this is going to probably be a puzzle mechanic in the game where you need to remember small details about the world in order to open up dialogue options to maybe like more positively affect how the game rolls out. We'll see. I don't know. There wasn't, besides the speculation of how it would function that I just laid out, there wasn't any concrete evidence that's how that worked. But it did seem very odd that they specifically called out the calendar and then had you go back in that memory, and then like there was lots of details on the calendar for you to like take mental notes of. Then besides then, there was some walking around. The walking around felt a little weird. It didn't feel as fluid as it did in Resident Evil 7. It just felt kind of awkward to turn. So I hope that's addressed. But you're looking through items that trigger memories and things like that, and I think you're probably slowly piecing together like why you're in this mental hospital and things like that. Then the orderly asks you to follow him down a hallway. Things get really spooky. Ground starts breaking apart. Shadows of monsters start appearing, and then the demo basically ends. I'm super about this. It looks great. It is the best looking VR game I've ever seen on any platform. It looks incredible. It looks like the trailers. Like Resident Evil 7 in VR does not look like Resident Evil 7 out of VR. Like if you watch a trailer for Resident Evil 7, that is not how that game looks inside VR. However, this looked exactly like it did in the trailers and stuff. And so I'm just super blown away by just like how good the Inpatient looks. And I'm super happy that they're expanding the universe of Until Dawn. So, then lastly, I played Wolfenstein 2 in a diner. So, the Wolfenstein diner was probably my favorite piece of any show floor exhibit. It's, where else am I going to play Wolfenstein in a diner? That's just such a unique experience to E3. To me, that's like what E3 is about, is doing that stuff, playing Wolfenstein in a diner, playing Resident Evil 7 in a haunted house, just stuff like that. And so, yeah, I waited 6.5 hours in line to play Wolfenstein 2 in a diner, and I want to say it was worth it. It was cool. They served strawberry milkshakes after you finished the demo. They give you a strawberry milkshake, just like from the trailer. And yeah, it's just the diner looked great. It had jolly diner music playing. Like there's menus, and I like took time to look at the menus. Like they're actually menus. Like they put thought into like what is on there. It's actually food and prices and stuff. There's a lot of detail in this diner. And you sit down at a booth, and you're given the controller, and there's a screen just like in the booth of the diner, and you play Wolfenstein 2. My actual impressions of Wolfenstein 2 itself, so it's the first level, and you're playing in a wheelchair, which is cool because it's an interesting way to change up the dynamic or the general gameplay style of Wolfenstein. Pretty bold to make that your demo, because it's definitely I was done with it by the end of the demo. I was ready to be out of that wheelchair. But I mean, beyond that, like it's pretty much the same as the New Order. Like you could have told me that this was a cut level from the New Order, and I would have believed you. It's very much just, if you like the New Order, you're gonna like the new Colossus. It's very much just like we made more of the thing you liked, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. If there are things that are substantially new about the New Order, about the new Colossus, they weren't apparent from this demo. That being said, I loved what I played. It was great. It had struck that balance between like morbid humor and like really serious, interesting storyline. I'm very interested to see where the story goes in this. It does look like Wolfenstein 1 as well. Wolfenstein the New Order. I've always thought Wolfenstein New Order always looked like washed out and like faded, like almost had like a fog going on. And Wolfenstein New Order looks the same way. Everything looks pretty washed out, and like it's just more gritty, I think. I think it's washed out because I'm recently been playing stuff like Uncharted and Horizon, which are super colorful and vibrant, and so just by comparison, like looks washed out to me. But it is just like the look of Wolfenstein. It's just like the look of those games. At this point, it is the style that they've chosen to go with. So. Yeah, so that was it. The demo was pretty long. It was like a 20-minute demo. I think it maybe took me like 25 minutes to beat it. I died a few times in the demo playing on normal. Like it's a good first-person shooter. It checks all those FPS boxes that you want to check. So now on to the theater demos that I got to watch. So Sony liked to do this, where a lot of the games that you really wanted to play were not playable. They were playable by a developer. You went into a theater and you watched the developer play through a section of the game. I was able to see 2 of these. I wanted to see more, but the scheduling just didn't work out. I saw Days Gone and I saw Spiderman. So I'll talk about Spiderman first. It was the first one I saw of the 2. And for Spiderman, it was the same demo that they showed during their E3 press conference. However, it was done in a slightly different way. So in the E3 press conference, I think it looked a lot like the Arkham games in a lot of ways. He was kind of perched up, he took a lot of people out stealthily and stuff. And so this one, what he did was he would swing around the buildings more. So like he'd be in the middle of a fight and he would just jump off the building and he would like just swing around the building to get like to a different vantage point and like crash through stuff and take people from behind and like really go at it. It showed a lot more combat and stuff. I think you can just go through this whole game just like not guns blazing, but you know, like just a full-on regular assault. I don't think you ever really need to be sneaky. Even the guys that had guns, he could just like take out with like well-placed web shots and stuff. And you know, if things got too heated, he'd jump out, swing around the building, and come back out from a different angle. And so that was really cool to see that game can be played in so many different dynamic ways. I'm really excited for Spider-Man. I really do think they have something special there. It's just the right team with the right property. And then Days Gone, I'm probably leaving E3 the most excited for Days Gone, just in general. I think they've got some really great concepts in there that I really want to see just explored. So, again, this was the same area, same mission scenario as the E3 demo. However, this was gone about in a completely different way. So it was a different time of day, it was daytime, and it was snowing. I don't remember how they said weather affects the AI and the freakers, which are like the zombie-esque things in this game. But the weather affects it, but at nighttime, so the freakers are nocturnal. And so they are more active at night, and during the daytime, they're typically just like sleeping off and stuff. So they're also like way more powerful at night. Like they're more ferocious, they're stronger, they're more aggressive. And so if you remember in the demo, he's driving the motorcycle and he gets clotheslined. This time you know that's coming, so he takes a different approach around, and then he just attacks the two guys from behind. Then he goes through and he still sets the bear trap like he does in the in the press conference presentation. However, this time he kind of waits around and you can see like the guys go and he gets snared in the bear trap, and then he's screaming, he wants to be let out, but his party members, his other fellow bandits, they're telling him to like be quiet, they're going to attract the horde and stuff. And he's like, I don't know how you want me to be quiet, my foot's caught in a bear trap, like someone get me out of here. And so one of them just shoots him. And this is the same gunshot that attracted the horde that you saw from the demo from the press conference. And so what this shows is that the AI just reacts without you being there. You don't have to be around for them to still go through the things they're going to do. They arrived to this conclusion of shooting him all on their own based on how much noise he was making and what they thought was best for their group. So what this implies is a really complex like AI that's driven by other things that beyond just what you do. And then he also, the guy who's playing the demo, he went through and he killed all the bandits there. He did kind of pretty sneaky and stuff. And then he kept going, and instead of getting the horde to attack the final group, he just went guns blazing. Right before then, there was a guy who was he was taunting like a freaker they had chained up. So you shoot the chain, and the freaker attacks the guy, and you kill the freaker from behind. And then he gets into like a big gunfight, so you get to see how the gunplay works. It's very Uncharted-esque, like very similar to the way Uncharted plays and stuff. And you go through and he clears out the guys with this gunfight, and then the demo ends in the same place with the zombie bear. And there's so many interesting concepts and ideas around Days Gone and the systems that run that game. Like, for example, the freakers, like, they have animal instincts and, like, needs and stuff. They don't just, like, feast on humans or whatever. Like, they could. That's, like, a source of meat. But they're also just like an animal. They congregate around watering holes. They need to go drink. They need to hunt for their food. Sometimes animals, sometimes people. They travel in packs. I think they respect a leader as well. And so there's a lot of things. That one I'm not 100% on. Just some of the stuff they said kind of sounds like that's how they function. Like I think there is kind of like almost like a caste system, a hierarchy to the way that they're run, almost in the same way of that wolves do it. It's a very similar kind of pack mentality. And so just the systems that are governing this world just seem really interesting. Your motorcycle can run out of gas. Like there's a gas meter to it. So there's a lot of just really great ideas in Days Gone, and I really hope it can live up to all those. And so as far as games, that's about it. One thing that wasn't a game, this is just for super rich people. This is Dome 360. So if you are rich enough to have a giant room in your house to put a giant dome, and also rich enough to have a 3D, a 360 camera, to take 360 videos of your extravagant trips to, you know, where rich people go to vacation, then you can put all this together. You can have, you can play your 360 videos on your dome in your giant room that you just happen to have. And then if you have a Vive, you can also like mess around with it with the Vive controllers and stuff. And yeah, just sit, chill out, and you know, watch all your sweet 360 videos. I don't even remotely know how much this costs. There's no point in me asking. This is not something I could afford, but it is a cool idea if you are the kind of person who just has that extra money lying around. And so that was it for the games I played. 3 days, and that's all I got to play and see, which doesn't seem like a lot because it's not. And that comes from my big issue with E3 this year. And that's kind of how I want to end this, was just my criticism and my critique about the way E3 functioned in general. So, E3, for a long time, I always thought of like it was something I was working towards. So I went to school for game design, I went to school for game art, I've been, you know, trying to break into the industry and you know, create games and do stuff for a long time. And this is the first year I had the opportunity to go to E3 just because I could afford, I live in Los Angeles now, I was never able to afford to go out to Los Angeles, despite the fact that I've technically had the industry credentials for a few years. And it always felt like a cool industry perk. Like, kind of like being invited to the Oscars or the Grammys or getting to go to a red carpet and, you know, stuff like that, and, you know, premieres of movies and things. Like, it was of the same ilk as that. It felt like this industry perk, this cool thing that you get to do because you're in this industry, and this industry is hard work, and it takes a lot to get into it. And so that prize of being able to finally go to E3 was lessened a little bit by the fact that you could just buy tickets this year. If you have, I think if you bought tickets early enough, they were like $200. If you waited too long, they were like $800. But you know, that's like roughly the price of a music festival. That's not that expensive for a 3-day long event. And so it does not sting, but you know, it makes it less special. It makes E3 less special. That I've been working to go to E3 for many years, and then someone just bought their way in. But like, that's fine. I don't want to be too pessimistic about that, because like, it is a cool thing to get to go to E3. There are a lot of people out there who love games that just don't work in this industry, and like, they want the opportunity to go to E3. And that's all well and good too. And I do understand E3 just needed more money. E3 has been getting smaller. EA doesn't go there anymore. They have their own thing. And so, it makes sense that you would make it open to the public and sell those tickets and get the extra money and keep E3 going, keep it strong, keep it big. Here's the thing though, it does, despite me whining about the fact that it feels less special, it does just generally hurt industry people, I think. So, this was what I was really banking on this as a networking event for my industry. I'm new to Los Angeles. I don't know a lot of people out here in my industry. Networking is the most important thing in the entertainment industry. And I was really excited for E3 as just a networking opportunity, a place to go and talk to other people in my industry, network with them, you know, learn from them, make connections, maybe find people to work on projects with in the future, maybe find, you know, potential places I'd want to work. just by talking to different developers and the heads of studios and things like that. And all the extra people here who weren't industry made that so difficult. Most of everyone I saw was not industry. You could tell because the industry people have clear badges and the people who bought their tickets have yellow badges. And most people were yellow badge, and so it was hard for me to hunt for the people who I needed to talk to network with. And like it also made the line stupid long. Like I said, I waited 6.5 hours for Wolfenstein 2. I waited 6.5 hours for Wolfenstein 2 because that was the line for every game. Almost every game was a day-long wait. Like if you want to play that game, you were there all day. In that line, in that one line, and that sucks. So, because that kind of defeats the purpose of this event, which is supposed to be, getting people early access to these games to get feedback as a marketing tool, but also just as a tool to like get in the hands of the general public and then learn from their feedback and stuff. And when everyone can only play like 3 to 5 games a show, like that diminishes the value that it could potentially serve in the development process and just as a marketing tool, which is what E3 was designed to be. And so here's how you remedy everything. Here's how you fix everything I just talked about. Is you make an industry day. The media can already book appointments and stuff. It's not as bad for them, but just for general industry stuff, just make an industry day. Have one day that's industry only, at least. Ideally, you make E3 4 days. You have 2 industry days, 2 public days. And you even let the industry people go to the public days. But, if you don't want to deal with the crowds, then just go during your 2 industry days and just be done with it. Maybe you have one day that's public only. Or your 2. Just if you want to just divide down the middle, that's fine too. But there should be some kind of way for it, it's just too crowded. It's too crowded for everyone. It's too crowded for the people who bought their tickets and was only able to play 3 games because the lines are so long, and it's not fair to the people in the industry who it is supposed to be an industry event, and like the industry goes and they don't get to play anything either. And so there's a major problem that's arisen with E3 now that they need to fix, and it doesn't seem like they want to. I've seen a few things that they're like, yeah, we're going to do it the exact same way next year because we got huge numbers this year. Like, you got a lot of huge numbers, but a lot of people were very angry. A lot of people were pissed about the lines. And so that's just, I think, something that they really need to look at into the future. It would just make everyone happy. You can still keep selling tickets, just, separate the days. Everyone will get to play more things. Everyone will be happier. Everyone will walk away with a better impression of it. So that was E3 2017. That was my general impressions of the show and the things that I played and just the way it was run in general. So thank you guys for listening and watching if you cared enough to hear my impressions of these things. There's a bunch of places you can go online to find impressions about E3 games and the show floor. And so I hope for anyone who watched all the way through that they found some value in one of the things that I spoke about during this little E3 2017 recap. I'll be back for more Game Dive, more podcasts, and possibly a new show that I've been tossing around in my head for a while. So stay tuned for all that. Thank you guys for watching.